Hello and welcome. Today we are talking about the serious issue of housing in Ghana. And I don't know if we have sat down today to plan what's going to happen in the future. And I'm going to show you two pictures of residential area. The first one is of posh houses. Now, stage, watch this. Well, clearly you can see that. Nicely paved roads, beautiful manicured gardens. It doesn't get better than that. Now let us look at the second set of houses, all within Accra. Well, as you can clearly see, bricks to keep the roofs together, poor ventilation, overcrowded, no planning. You can't even plan. And this is well, the second set of houses, if I can say, that's how the slums would look like, if you want to call it. So folks, that's what we are talking about today, to find out how come there's such a wide gap between the have and have-nots in the same region. Some clearly priced out of region, and some, well, you and I can afford. This morning, if you followed the news, you could hear the Shiraj boss, paying so many thousands of dollars to house here in a month. And these are, people in the higher echelons who are supposed to protect the private purse, the public purse. Yet still, they claim that houses are expensive in terms of rent or building. What is the real situation out there? When I come back, I am talking to somebody in the industry who knows what's going on and why it is so. My name is Nanan Sakwao, and this is PM Express. Well, we are talking about housing and the serious case of housing, if you would ask me. And with me in the studio is Samuel Amegaibo, who is the Executive Secretary to Grader. So definitely he knows what's happening on the ground. Joining us later on the phone will be Roland Akabza, who's a policy and advocate specialist. He will also join us on the phone later. But I just want to, Sammy, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Sammy, everybody agrees times are hard, petrol, dollar, CD, all the factors don't add up. But are we using these factors to squeeze people a bit more than necessary? I mean, some of the prices, are unrealistic. $4,000 a month, $8,000 a month. And if you're buying the property, $250,000, some are even $1 million. I mean, we know times are hard, but are they that hard?
Well, we'll have to tackle it from so many angles.
Let's try.
Yeah, but to begin with, I think prices are normally determined by the demand and supply. Mm-hmm. So where there are no sufficient accommodation available for the citizenry, then people take advantage of the situation, and sometimes we want to squeeze you. Mm-hmm. But I think there are equally genuine cases for some prices that are quoted. And so maybe as with the discussion, we'll also be able to look at this too.
Okay, well, I'll still stay with the pricing. So I mean, a bag of cement is 40 cedis at the maximum. I'm not exaggerating here.
Yeah.
Petrol is, let's say 20 cedis even per gallon. I mean, how much sand and everything, how much of this would you need in a house for you to rent this house out at $4,000 every month? I mean, that's exorbitant.
I think first of all, we have to look at what goes into the production of the house itself. Sure. And I think there are certain fundamentals that are missing from the whole structure. Mm-hmm. There are certain components of the housing that if we have some support, from government, then we'll be left with other components to do it. For example, issue about land acquisition. We are very much aware of the problems that are confronting us in terms of land. We have a very bad tenure system. Transfer of ownership from one owner to the other has always been a problem. Land registration has been a problem. That is why land gas are having a field day and creating all sorts of problems. So if we can do something about land ownership and make it very simple for people to own land, that takes a chunk of the cost of the production of the house already. And if we go beyond there, and then we go to other things like financing, where we have to, lack of long-term financing. The only finances that are available are short-term, and as you know, the interest rates are beyond 28%. The developer will have to borrow the money at all these rates. And what can he do? He will pass on the costs to the house. Then we come to materials themselves. Most of the materials that we are using for our productions are about 70% based imported. And that is a drain on the dollar, meaning that we have to convert our local currency into dollar to go and import these materials into the country and also pay import duties. All these things are costs, okay? So if we don't have any system in place with some partnership or participation of government and the private sector, and everything has to be done by the private sector, he is a business entity. So any cost that he incurs, he has no option than to pass it on to the final consumer. And then another cost which is hitting us so hard is infrastructure costs. Ideally, the roads network, the pavements and all those things, the water, the electricity that are supposed to be available on the land, ideally are supposed to be provided by the state. But the state is constrained with financing, and so this is left to the developer. So if the developer has to find the money to provide all these services, again, he has to add on to the cost. So we have done analysis, and we've realized that today it costs us approximately 35 to 40%. The cost of the house goes into land and infrastructure.
Sammy, hold on. You need to fix your mic for us. I was going to take a quick break, but when we come back, with regards to infrastructure, if I look at areas like Dansoman, Cantonment, Airport, the roads were done by Achampo ages ago. So are they factoring all these roads into the building? Stay tuned. When we come straight back, we want to find out how come, prices there. We'll just say, these roads are done already, so here the rent or the houses will go down a bit. We're coming back. Stay tuned. Well, hello and welcome back. Sorry about that. But just before we went to the break, we just wanted to find out, Sami was explaining that there are certain areas there where when the developer moves in, has to construct the road, lay pipes and bring electricity and therefore factor all into their cost. How about areas that have been established since the 70s? So all these things are already there. Yet still, Sami, we are unable to afford it. A little change of sliding windows and you are in trouble.
Yeah, people call land in Cantonment, Labone, those areas as prime. It's like a Manhattan of Ghana. And the moment the word prime comes in, then obviously the price is also prime. So much as those areas may have the infrastructure already laid, it has also added value to those land. And unfortunately, it should have been an advantage, but it becomes also a disadvantage. And you have to pay a lot. An acre of land in Cantonment and Labone today will be ranging around 4 or 5 million, not cedis, dollars. So if you develop a property on such a land, then it tells you that if you try to develop it in about 2-story, you cannot even pay for the cost of the land. That is why you see most of those lands that have been converted today are now high-rise, because that is the only way you can spread the cost of the land to each unit that you are able to construct there to sort of minimize the cost of the house.
I know we don't have control price or stuff like that, but is there any way you can capture? Because aren't we in danger of pricing ourselves out of the market in competition? Because if you look global, now if let's say Nestle wanted to come and do business, they'll probably say, look, let's go and settle in Togo because I need maybe 10 acres of prime land, but I'm not going to give you 40 million because I want to be in Labone or Airport, and therefore I'll go to other. Are we in danger of pricing ourselves out of competition?
Yes, that is a possibility. I think we've discussed this before, and it came out clear that in the West African region, it seems Ghana was rated as one of the countries that has high rental values. And I think it affects business opportunities as well. As you stated, if somebody is coming from, say, United States or UK to come and establish business, and he looks at the options available, and it will cost him so much to rent an apartment or rent a space for his business in Ghana. And the option at Togo is much cheaper. I mean, the risk is that he might choose to go over Ghana. One of the things that is also sort of making it competitive and a bit advantage for Ghana is the peace we are enjoying also comes with some value. Yes, adds to the value. So obviously, what is the point in going to, say, establish a business in Nigeria where you think there's so much conflict there, as against coming to establish in Ghana? So all these things, I mean, you may not think about it, but they have all added some kind of value to our properties.
We have to have a bit of disagreement, you know, to try and lower, try and lower the price.
Yeah.
What can the state do to reduce the pressure on land? Before we even get to the building side, what can the state do to reduce pressure on land in these prime areas?
You mean the state to reduce
the pressure? I mean, because you see, everybody is moving to Accra because everything is in Accra.
Yeah.
And anytime I say this, people think I'm lying. But even if you want to be shot, you have to come to Accra. The shooting range is in Teshi. You know, so everything is in Accra, including the firing squad range is in Accra.
Yeah.
So maybe if we move things
outside, yeah, that is true. You see, and it is all about providing infrastructure. You see, if we move out of Accra and decide to look at the space at, say, Dodua, between Accra and Dodua, all the spaces that are there, and we provide the necessary basic infrastructure, the road networks, provide electricity, provide water, then it becomes conducive as settlement for people. But if these things are not there, we will all move towards where these things are there, and then we begin to crumble and take that little space, and everybody will want to be in Accra. Apart from that, I think the state has to plan in a way that certain things are moved outside. The city is getting choked. Every project, every business, everything that seems to be going on is happening in the big cities, and that is wrong. You have to find a way to provide incentives for businesses to be set up outside the Accra space, and then people will begin to move there. I mean, if you look at our communities, look at the whole of Accra. Everybody wants to go to Makola to go and buy. Everybody wants to go to Carnation Market to go and buy. Why is it so? It is because we don't have good satellite markets that provide everything at a go. If you go to the small market that we have, like Domi, and then I think there's one on Odoko Road, and then a little at the dance. If you look at those markets, they don't provide all that everybody needs. And for that matter, they still have to go. Even those who are selling at the small market will still have to come and buy from the Makola first before they go and sell there. We need to have a system where goods and food that are even brought from the village will be able to go to this center straight away without making this big market as a point of contact at all times. That is a problem. And we don't have proper transportation system. You understand? So you go to those small markets, even the roads, if it rains, you cannot walk. Even the Makola areas these days, it is very difficult to walk. So we just have to create that enabling environment for people to use the spaces that are near them. Why will you have to live in Dansuman and attend church at Rich? It's because you don't have a church in Dansuman, which you think it is not.
No, as for us Christians, we are troublemakers. So there's no Muslim that will live in Dansuman and go to airport to mosque. Only Christians who drive from Akropong to Accra to a particular church. Yeah. You know, that's for that, you know, I'll have to do a research into it. A Muslim will go to the next mosque, say his prayer, go. And if he's at work, you go to the next mosque. As for us, no. We have to move from Temba all the way to Nansuma.
I think we have our umbilicus buried there.
But I think, we like you're saying, we need to somehow remove some things out of the cities.
Yeah. Decongest the city. Decongest. I mean, if some ministries can even begin to move. Look, if you go to the ministries before, sometimes you are not too sure which of the parking space you are using. You see, Ministry of Communication is turned this way, and then as soon as you go to the other one is like an L-shaped building, and the other one is Ministry of something. They don't even have designated, spaces for their ministries. It's not too good. It's not too good.
Now, before we move on, you cannot talk about land without talk about my colleague chiefs. Another very troublesome society. We have become very dangerous to Ghana.
Yeah.
You know, where we will sell and resell and sell and not even think that let me leave one plot for a police station or let me just give one plot to a fire service to come and set up. Just sell.
No, sometimes they even forget about themselves.
They don't even leave
they celebrate and don't even have a palace for themselves. It happens that way. You know, land is one of the fundamental requirements of providing housing. And like I already explained, it is in a mess. Our tenure system is bad. But we have to do something to structure land ownership. What I'm going to say, the chiefs may not like it, but I sincerely think that if all lands in this country are vested in the states, so that it's only the states that sells land, all this land guard and all these double sales and triple sales will come to an end. That is the number one solution to it. But it's not going to be easy. And as I've said, the chiefs are not going to agree. But if the states decide that this is a problem and this is the way to go, it's not Ghana alone. I think India and some of the Eastern, they have done it. They went through the same problem and they had to do it. And some of our chiefs too, I mean, excuse my language, are selfish. If they get onto the throne, they take the opportunity and want to finish all the land before even their tenure is over. So what happens is that he becomes a chief. By 5 years on his throne, he would have probably sold every land. And you look at his age, in about 25 years, he's probably going to go off. Nobody lives forever. And then when he's gone, his subjects don't have anything to call their own property. Then it becomes a problem. So if we vest all the land in the state, and the state manages it, what happens is that there will be a structure where perhaps every year some money will be paid or collected from the people who are on the land. And then some portion will be given to the chief and the community, so that at least they can be assured of some regular income that comes to them as a community and decide what they want to do with the money. But for now, the chiefs collect all the money and they decide what they want to do. And after 5 years in their chieftaincy, they've even finished all selling the land.
I mean, the land tenure is a major issue which, like you're saying, people are scared to tackle. Yeah. Going back to the housing issue, I was reading in the Final today, which I saw your picture. Now, it says that, you know, we're between 1 to 2 million houses upside down. Nobody has the actual figure, but between 1 and 2 million. Yeah. 1 million is definite. I mean, that's a lot. Now, we're saying that to catch up, we need to build 120,000 houses a year for 20 years so that we break even. And we're only doing 30 to 40 now. I mean, that is a scary statistic. So there's people who end up on the road for life?
Unfortunately, that is the case. And because we also don't have a system in place, see, it's not everybody who can own a property. But because there's nothing happening for people to get the opportunity to rent houses, everybody is trying to own a property. And that is also not the best. Ideally, if you graduate from school, I believe that if there were systems where you can get some chamber and hall somewhere, you don't need to own that. If it is provided by the state, it's like social housing. You move into that accommodation. When you are about 15 years, then you may have gotten married and perhaps have 1 kid or 2. It means that your family is not increasing. Then you get out of the single-room apartment and you then move into, say, a 2-bedroom. And then as your family becomes bigger, then you move to the next stage, and then maybe you begin to prepare for retirement. That is where you can then consider looking at your status in life. You can see whether you can acquire a property, then you move in. But we don't have anything like that. So a fresh graduate gets out of school.
Starts the project.
He starts the project, okay? He starts the project. Whilst he's doing the project, he's probably also paying rent. You see the two pressure on the same person. And then beyond that, yes, when he is in school, when he gets out of school, he is paying rent and he is developing. If he decides to even sign on to a mortgage, at the age of, say 25, you go and, you surrender your life to a bank. Then the entire life, you are paying mortgage. If you are unfortunate and you lose your business along the line, say after 10 years, and you are unable to get a stable job for 5 years, you know the problems that come with this. So it is just wrong. Undue pressure. And we have to do something about it. And the private sector cannot do this all alone without any injection or some incentives from government. We need to work together. But it looks like for now, government is sitting somewhere and the private sector is also sitting somewhere. And everybody is trying to do what he can to survive. We can't make any headway.
My brother said the state can't afford to build affordable houses. How can we afford to buy it? You know,
that's a serious one.
You know, if the state can't afford to build up, so I mean, is there not a cheaper way to build? I visited a building site on Friday morning. The amount of concrete, the amount of cement in the blocks, I mean, it's like Fort Knox. You know, I'm thinking, well, I mean, it's good you're building, but I mean, is it not too expensive to put so much cement, you know, in a building?
There have been some research by the Building Research Institute into some local materials, including what we can think of not using concrete all the time, some boards and chipboards and all that. But it looks like the research have not been supported. Most of this research have not been supported. But there are seriously cheaper ways of doing this, and we can go back and do them. And then the Ghanaian also, we have some, I don't know whether to use attitude or perception about what we want to call a house. I remember one of our developers imported a technology called the hydrofoam.
Yeah.
The hydrofoam is simply compressed bricks with a little cement that you can just pick it up, and you arrange it like a jigsaw.
Yeah.
We used this on one of our project sites, and when the project was going on, people called that development, Atakwame. You understand? So if the private person or a private businessman who want to do such a project, he thinks that is a bit of a risk. Okay,
but
that is a bit of a risk.
It was actually a very good.
Yes, the Ghanaian perception is that is Atakwame. He is not looking at what his money or his pocket can meet, but he is ready to criticize and say that this is Atakwame, and he doesn't want to have anything to do with Atakwame building. But somehow that particular project, I'll make it a test case. The developer went ahead to develop it in spite of all this, perception from the people. And when the project was done, those who were bold enough to buy
Tema community.
No, the Teshinungwa estate, which we call Greater Estate.
Okay.
When it was finally done and the people settled in, what they realized was that if you are in the hydrofoam houses, when the weather is hot outside, the inside is cool. And when it is cooler outside, the inside was warm. So they seem to have enjoyed some good temperature.
Climate control.
Inside the room. Whilst the others who use the concrete blocks were always struggling with heat and all that. So that was something that a private developer had to risk to do it. And people bought into it. But the problem with that technology too is that you need laterite deposits. And because we have very high transportation costs, if you don't have the laterite deposit on the project site and you need to transport it from wherever it is onto the site, that defeats
the
whole idea of having a cheaper construction. So that is what the problem was with that particular technology. But the other things, bamboos and other things that have been developed into something like chipboards that we can use, and we need to get it going.
The amount of iron rods that we need, I mean, do we need all those iron rods?
Sometimes we have over-designed or we overuse. As for the use of iron rod, we have really abused it. Because when you have, if you understand structures and you understand how to introduce iron rods into buildings, you see that some of the iron rods that are introduced into the building actually don't perform anything. It is just a waste
of money.
Yes, waste of money. And it is because they don't know. If you don't engage the services of a professional who understands what to do with iron rod, these wayside people will come and give you a long lecture and description of what must happen. Continue to waste your money because you are also you're gray in the area, you don't understand. You continue to purchase these materials for them and they will just waste them.
I mean, I keep asking you this question because, you see, I think it's a problem waiting to happen in future because there are so many people who will be willing to sleep outside. Maybe now he's 16, 23, youthful exuberance, doesn't care. But in 40, in 30 years' time, he'll probably be 57. And I don't think that they will still want to be sleeping in front of somebody's shop. So we need to have a comprehensive plan in housing people.
That is the case. And that is why I say that there has to be public-private partnership. And that has to be worked out well for it to be effective. At the moment, there's some PPP for almost everything, including providing housing. But there's something wrong with even that policy. I mean, the definition of affordable housing is not too clear in that policy. And for that matter, the private sector is unable to tap into that policy. It looks like at the moment it is purely at the discretion of somebody, let me call the minister, who can look at your proposal and will want to decide whether that policy that you have brought fits into the agenda of affordable housing. So that has to work that first, so that if the private sector looks at the incentives that go with the package, there are some tax-free, I think, free importation of materials, and then I think land might be available for you instead of you going to struggle for land. In some cases, land may be available for you from the state. But beyond that, the thing has to be well structured for it to benefit the people. If not, we will just continue to talk about housing deficits, and there'll be no show.
Because it's not getting any.
It's not getting any.
Now, this affordable, I mean, you're in the business. I mean, minimum wage is 6 Ghana cedis. So that's where you forget it.
Forget it.
You're not within the affordable range. What is the threshold for the state to say, it's $10,000, therefore it's affordable, or it's $5,000, so therefore, what is their threshold to say that something is affordable?
Unfortunately, that definition has not come, and affordability has become relative. What is probably affordable to you, Nana, will not be affordable to me. And the same way, an orange seller or a shoe shine somewhere, affordability is different from him as against, say, a bank manager. So that is where affordability is. But we have come out with some analysis to say that affordability to you will mean that you may have acquired that property, you contribute about 30 to 40% of your income to service it every month, and then in about 15 to 20 years, you should be able to have paid for the house. If your circumstance can support this analysis arrangement, then which means that property is affordable to you.
Okay. So they work per percentage.
Yeah, per percentage. Yeah. For example, assuming you have taken a mortgage for the house, these are the analysis. Formally, you have to deposit about 20% of the cost before the rest is spread. And I think they've realized that 20% is even difficult to come by now. So at least now there's zero financing, meaning that they can finance you from zero without you making any contribution to it. But the point is that you have to know that 30 to 40% of your income will go into servicing that mortgage facility. And then they spread the rest over a period of, say, 20 years. So if your income cannot support this arrangement, then it means that house is not affordable to you.
Not affordable to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the plan for those who are not doing 30, 40% income, like the orange seller and everything? Because you have to house them in one way or the other. Is the best way to develop the rural area so you move them out? Or do you find something cheap within the city and move them in?
First of all, when you are developing communities, everybody must take some space for it to be a harmonious environment. You cannot have even the airport or the prime areas. If you don't make a room for people to do the garden for you, like garden boys and watchmen and house girls, it means that the people there will not be able to live. So we normally plan communities taking into cognizance that all these things are required. And for that matter, you make a blend of, say, the the luxury structures, the medium income earning group, and then something for the low income as well. If you can develop something with that blend, it makes it better for the community to live. But we also have to understand one thing. Beyond affordable housing, there's the need for social housing. The difference between social housing and affordable housing is that social housing is some kind of accommodation that is provided by either the state or in joint partnership with the private sector to make it possible for the people that we have described as the orange seller and those who for some circumstances can never purchase houses to be accommodated, so far as they are human beings and they live in a country where taxes are paid. If these things are made available for them to occupy, at least for rental, it's not for free, something that is reasonably priced for them to be able to occupy for a while. If their circumstances change, then they move into the other social class. And then the affordable housing is housing for the low income bracket. So this is the difference. Social housing is housing that is provided by the state. Sometimes it could even be free. If you look at our people who are handicapped, for example, it should have been possible for the state to provide them accommodation, perhaps even for free. And then those that are in the disadvantaged circumstances could be provided with housing by the state. And we call those social housing. And then the affordable housing is houses that will be purchased by the people, but then pricing and everything has been pegged at some ceiling for it to be made affordable for the low-income earners of our society.
I was going to look at the plan to also develop the areas that we call slums, you know, how we can develop it. I know we like 100 by 100, but I don't think everybody needs 100 by 100. So maybe you could develop by, you know, small squares and proper drainage. But before we do that, the story in the Finder today was talking about mortgage lenders pooling their services because the dollar CD. What's the story about that?
What is happening is that because the city has depreciated or continues to depreciate, we are hearing that it's getting better anyway, so that is good for us to hear that. What is happening is that a house that is supposed to cost you, say, 100,000 last year, you know, because most of us, our houses already were indexed to the dollar. And it was not because we just wanted to collect dollars. It was because the circumstances surrounding the real estate business. If you price your houses in cities over a period, you will lose. Your capital will drop. Because it takes a long time for you to start. The gestation period for getting a house done is between 6 months to 24 months, depending on the kind of house you are developing. So if your economy or the currency is not stable, and I give my price today to you at 100,000, by the time a year passes, if the city has depreciated, it means that my capital has been affected. So to safeguard our investment, the only thing we could do was to hedge it against the dollar. And especially where we import about 70% of the component of the houses, we definitely needed to stay in there to be able to import, and then we can continue to do business. So it is not as if the developers or the real estate people just wanted to price the houses in dollars. For the business to survive at that time, that was the only way.
The city means you have to price it. Well, you price in city, but then it means at every given day you need to change.
Yes. So if a house was costing last year, let's say $50,000, I think last year made somewhere, I'm not sure of the exchange rate, but let's assume that last year the exchange rate was 1:2. Today, what is it? It is 1:3. So if the same $50,000 house last year could have costed you 100,000 Ghana cedis, but today it will cost you 175,000 cedis. Have you seen the difference? 75,000. Now, because the mortgage firms use that formula to calculate your ability to afford the mortgage, it means that people are being priced out. If you could afford a $100,000 house, 100,000 Ghana cedi last year, and you qualify for a mortgage, now if we make the currency change, and the price has now increased from 100,000 to 150, it means you're out.
Your wage hasn't gone up too.
Your wage hasn't gone up. You are still receiving the same wage as you were earning the previous year. But it is not the developer who has increased the price. It is the economy. So that is what was creating the problem. So some people's mortgage applications were in the pipeline from the day the application is received by the mortgage firm. By the time the mortgage is even approved, you have been disqualified.
Now that's the problem.
Yeah, and some people have to cough up the difference, because if the mortgage company has agreed to only give you 120, and it took you 3 months to get your mortgage approved, and you come back to the developer, and the price has gone up, it is either you make the difference up, or you pull out. And most people had to pull out because they could not sustain themselves in that arrangement. That is the real situation on the ground. It's not artificial. It is not anybody's making. It is just the system which is working that way.
Did it affect many people?
Yes, it affected many people. Some people pulled back to see if they can get a way around it. First of all, either their own income will improve, maybe their salaries could have been improved, or as we are seeing, the dollar is, the cedi seems to be stable a bit. Maybe it could come down. I'm not too sure. If that happens, it will be at the advantage of those people. But they definitely had to pull out.
How did it affect the real estate business itself? I mean, I know the buyers are obviously desperate, but then the seller too.
Yes, I mean, if I could sell 200 houses last year, and today I can only sell 100 or less, it tells you that my business is down. And when my business is down, it also goes to tell you that the people that I will recruit to do my business, I have to lay some off, if that's the point. And we also saw the price escalating with regard to things like cement, iron rods, and recently the pipes, because most of this, the CD instability and the exchange rate affected all this material. So as soon as they started increasing their prices, obviously, can you imagine you taking a contract from somebody or having an agreement to construct a house for somebody at 100,000? Just as you dug the foundation and you're about to pour the concrete, your basic price for cement was, say, 25 Ghana cedis. And just as you're about to pour the concrete, cement had gone to 30 or 35. What do you think is going to happen?
You go back
it
to
is either you stop the project, renegotiate with the owner, and if he's ready to pay the difference, you go on. Or they will go on, and if you are not careful, they can cut corners. You know, all these things, I mean, brought some instability into the market. And it has greatly affected the industry.
I wanted to take a break, and then when we come back, I want to find out, are there any deliberate policies to help in terms of making cement cheaper or taking in, duties of building materials to bring the cost of building down, make it more affordable? Because affordability is very, very key here. Stay tuned, we're coming back. Well, is there any deliberate policy to make building cheaper? Because it's very, very important. 1 to 2 million houses upside down, you have to catch up and catch up real fast. And the amount of little children that we are adding to the population on a yearly basis is also a whole different ballgame. We need to reduce the population growth and increase the amount of houses we add into the system. But Sammy, have you engaged government to make things like iron rods, cement, electricals, really affordable so that the price, would come down so people can afford and rent to come down? Because
we haven't done well with that. You remember at the introduction of the program, I said that it seems government is sitting somewhere and the private sector is also sitting somewhere. We need to sit down on a round table, look at our needs, look at the requirements, what are the shortages in the system, what are the problems confronting the industry. But we haven't done that. We have made, GRIDA as an association has made gestures towards government to have some discussion going on. It has not been too well, but in recent times we've seen government making some attempt to get some discussion at least going. And I remember we've been invited to the ministry too, and we're even asked to present some document on what we think are the challenges facing the industry. So if they take it up seriously from where we started from, it will be a good start and we can do something. But I want to make some points here. If you look at, there's some study that has been done in the past, and that study was able to prove that about 13% of our population could possibly own houses. 13%. Mm-hmm. Then about 63% can only rent houses. There's no way this 16% can acquire houses and call it their own. Mm-hmm. The rest, which is about 24% or so, will never
go closer
to any house.
Whether they are renting or buying.
You understand? So the demand now is at the rental level. But because there are no rental properties, that is why everybody thinks that instead of going through the process of renting, he quickly wants to start owning a property.
Because some of the rents
yeah, but that is also not correct. So if we can get some rental properties developed, at the moment the private sector cannot develop houses and rent them. Find out from the numerous developers who are developing all over the country and find out whether any of them is renting. Nobody can afford to rent because we don't have long-term financing. The financing that are available 2 to 3 years, you have to pay back. And how can you finish a property, rent it over and over before you be able to pay the bank? So if we don't get this thing sorted out, we will continue to have problems.
But you see, again, within this 63%, which is a huge rental market out there, is there a range? Is there a price range that these are people who can rent 100 cedis a month, or these are people who can rent 200 cedis a month? What are the gap? Yeah. So to know that we can't build more than 5,000, so that more than $5,000 or 10,000, so that we can rent at this. Have we worked those numbers out?
We have done something. It might not be exactly very comprehensive, but at least the study also went ahead to prescribe the rental values or the income levels of the 63% that I'm talking about to determine what kind of accommodation they can afford. But the point is, the private sector cannot go there at all. That area of providing housing for rent, he cannot go there at all. And that has to be done either by the state or in partnership with the private sector. When I say partnership with the private sector,
but in the long term,
government,
you make money.
You see, if I tell you that 40% of our cost structure is for land and infrastructure, and these two can be absorbed by government, that tells you that they have 60% of cost. If we go further into the construction materials and we can remove the element of import duty, it will also bring that component a bit down. You understand? So government has to come in. He has to find the money. I don't know how, but he has to find the money and make it possible to provide those infrastructure services so that those costs will not be the cost of the developer. You understand? If these costs are taken away, then we have 60% to do it. So let's look at it. If 100,000 house, you've taken 40% off, it means that you have 60,000 to do it. I'm sure if we look at the cost structure into detail, there are certain things that can also be removed from that element, which will also bring the cost down. But for now, the developer is a businessman. Any cost he incurs, including fighting of land guards, I'm sorry, you pay. The developer pays where land guards to protect his land, and he has to factor all those costs into the cost, and you have to pay for it.
Well, folks, that's what time will allow us. But this conversation, I wouldn't say it hasn't even started yet. This is just the surface of it. I think maybe we need to break it down and just look at it. And maybe next time try and get someone from government. We tried anyway, but we'll get someone in here to answer some of the questions so that we're going forward. How do we house the average Ghanaian? Sami, thank you very much for your time and coming to explain to us how things are on the ground. Folks, tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again. Thank you very much for watching.